a little game for you. When was the last farmers' protest in London? Right? Can you do that? Do you want to have a go at that? It was last week, right? The last one. And I'm going to ask my colleagues to join in on this one as well, because we do this stuff for a living. When was the one before that? When do you think the one before that was? You're not allowed to Google it, Keith. There was one in March. The one in March was essentially pointing out the tragedy of Brexit for the UK farmers. And they were convoys of tractors. They were in Parliament Square. They drove in slow motion through South London, where supporters awaited. I don't know where Jeremy Clarkson was. Maybe that's why the cameras were not in attendance on anything like the scale that they were last week. Signs that read, "No farmers, no food, no futures." Protesters called on the government to end the trade deals that they say allow imports of food, the same trade deals that Vauxhall said would probably lead to the closure of factories. If you're just joining us today, Vauxhall have announced the closure of a factory. And this was the work of Save British Farming and another organisation. And I don't know why it got a fraction of the coverage. Maybe the numbers were much smaller, but I suppose in a sense you'd also wonder why the millions of people that signed a petition for a second referendum, which I said at the time was pointless and a waste of time, but I appreciate people want to articulate their feelings, got a considerably less coverage than the number of people signing a referendum calling for the first Prime Minister in the last 5 to get into Downing Street for the first time as a consequence of a general election to call another general election. It can't be 5. I must have got that wrong. Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, Rishi Sunak. They all got into Downing Street the first time without a general election, didn't they? David Cameron won a general election, but who voted for a coalition in 2010? So where was the petition then? saying we didn't vote for a literally nobody. No single voter in the whole of the United Kingdom put an X in the box that said coalition. Because there wasn't one. So after Cameron, May, no general election when she got the job. After May Johnson, no general election when he got the job. They both subsequently won general elections, but when you got the job, no general election. After May Johnson, after Johnson, Truss. Easy to forget, if only. And no general election at all. And after Truss, Sunak. No general election. And when he did call one, he lost it. So 4 of the 5 last PMs have been handed the reins of power without any democratic process whatsoever. This nation of bedwetting Brexiteers are now calling for the only MP, the only Prime Minister in the last 5 to have achieved prime ministerial office via a general election for the first time. He's the one that should apparently call another general election because they're very unhappy about something unspecified. Is that where the word snowflakes come from? Is that where the word snowflakes come from? What do they want to do? They want to cancel a general election, despite the fact that only 1 in 5 prime ministers in the last 8 years has actually achieved office for the first time as a consequence of a general election. You know, I wrote a book called How They Broke Britain, and I wondered whether it was going to have legs after Keir Starmer won the general election. And it's things like this that explain why it's still selling 1,000 copies a week a year after it was published. Because it's all what do you do next? If you're looking at The Fisherman that we talked about at the top of the show, or you're looking at Vauxhall that has been rightly in our bulletins today, what on earth do you do next? You just have to start shouting. It's not our fault. It's nothing to do with us. We trusted Boris Johnson. We trusted Nigel Farage. We trusted Liz Truss. We trusted the Daily Mail. We trusted the Daily Telegraph. We trusted the Daily Express. We trusted Rupert Murdoch. We trusted we trusted right-wing blowhards on the radio telling me that Brexit was going to be brilliant. We trusted all these people. We're still not ready to admit that we made a terrible mistake and that we were mugged. So let's overthrow the government. What? I'm signing a petition to overthrow the government. Just run through the last 14 years, lads, will you, please? The things that you thought were going to go great. Richard Littlejohn in the Daily Mail yesterday, actually writing in a national newspaper that told you Liz Truss was a genius about how Keir Starmer should walk the plank. It is beyond surreal. On the plus side, it means that How They Broke Britain is likely to become an academic text in years to come. On the downside, they are still crudding all over my country, and they don't seem to be running out of energy. It's extraordinary. I suppose Donald Trump has given them a bit of a boost, has he? Given them a bit of a fillip. Well, what's that you say? Who's your second favourite rapist, if you're a Donald Trump fan? There's a question I'd like to see more people get asked when they pop up on Nadine Dorries writing in the Daily Mail yesterday about how great Donald Trump is, and then writing a very poignant little piece about how she was a victim of sexual abuse as a child, and apparently lacking the wit to see how those two stories might, for some people who've been victims of the kind of sexual assault that Donald Trump boasts about, and indeed has been found by a court to have committed, not seeing that that might be triggering, perhaps, for other victims of sexual assault. So next time someone tells you they're a Donald Trump fan, ask them who their second favourite rapist is. It might give them a little bit of pause. I doubt it. But it might give them a little bit of... Who's your second favourite sex offender? Because I know your favourite is the one that was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein for 10 years. Don't take my word for it. That's according to Jeffrey Epstein. You remember him. He's the paedophile sex trafficker. Photographed with Donald Trump more times than Jeff Hurst got photographed with the World Cup. But who's your second favourite? Might be him. Might be Jeffrey. Maybe you're a Jeffrey Epstein fan. You keep that quiet. It's extraordinary. And it's not... I mean, this is where it comes from. This is where the madness comes from. The idea that because for the first time in 14 years, having inflicted untold horrors upon this country, these people aren't in charge. They don't know how to process it. One thing I'd say, that the idea that Keir Starmer and the Labour government aren't doing much, if they're not doing much, why are this lot so terrified? What are they so scared of? A slight shift of a slight redistribution of wealth? What are they so terrified? Anyway, who's your second favourite rapist? That might be a good question for the presenter of Question Time next time someone starts singing the praises of Donald Trump on the programme. Sorry, I don't know quite where that came from, but I do get cross when I see these stories about damage being done to parts of my country that I told you was going to happen. Well, not even me, the people who understood the fishing industry, the people who understood the car industry. Just got completely ignored. While David Frost got put in the House of Lords where he can sit next to Daniel Hannan. And what happens to the rest of the country? They are encouraged by the same forces to start signing petitions calling for the first Prime Minister in 5 to actually be elected to Downing Street for his first term of office, to somehow be denied the exercise of power. They're absolutely terrified that Labour's policies might work. Absolutely terrified. And of course, as ever, it's the people who might benefit from it who've been persuaded to lead the march against it.